Lando Norris' one-stop gamble pays off after surviving a late charge by Oscar Piastri to win the Hungarian Grand Prix as everything goes wrong in the closing stages for Charles Leclerc. From Racing News 365, my name is Nick Golding, and I'm delighted to be joined, as always, by lead editor Ian Parks, who has gone above and beyond with the final background before the F1 summer break. Ian, you're quite literally on the start-finish straight, which is where, of course, about 2 hours ago, Lando Norris crossed the finish line to win at the Hungaroring, despite the fact he didn't look set to win after the opening lap, was fifth by the exit of turn 2. Nobody thought he was going to fight through. The top three was Leclerc, Piastri and George Russell for much of the race. Alonso in fourth, Norris in fifth, and once Norris finally got Alonso, a massive gap between him and the top three led to him taking the one stop compared to the top three who took the two, and in the end it proved to be the right strategy to be on.
It's perfect, wasn't it? Yeah, as you can see, folks, I've decided to give you something a little bit special for this closing F1 update before we head into the summer break, and my holidays, in all honesty, cannot come soon enough. Thank you very much. As you can probably see, littered down here to the side, got lots of red, white and green confetti, of course, representing the colours of the Hungarian flag. So that confetti strewn all over the track and to the side and up and down the pit lane as well, following Lando Norris's victory here, of course. As you say, Nick, taking great pleasure in a one-stop strategy compared to the two of Oscar Piastri. We saw a 14-point swing potentially in that Grand Prix there, because Oscar went into the race 16 points ahead. It could have gone 23. Instead, it's come out as 9, and it's set things up really nicely now for post-summer break, with 10 races remaining, starting in Zandvoort at the end of August. But yes, a great one-stop strategy deployed by Lando, pretty much dictated by the fact that he didn't have the greatest of getaways, and from third on the grid, very quickly found himself down in fifth position behind both George Russell and Fernando Alonso. So from there, that forced Lando, backed him up a little bit into a corner effectively, because as Andrea Stella admitted post-race, the plan for McLaren was to have both drivers doing a two-stop. Instead, with that poor start from Lando, as I say, they were really forced for him, and given the fact that he was able to clear, certainly George Russell, having picked off Fernando within a few laps, as I say, forced him into that one stop because he found himself too far behind Oscar to make then a two-stop work effectively if he was going to have any opportunity of just even getting on the podium at that particular stage, never mind going on to win the race. So beautifully controlled by Lando. It did for all the world, and you and I were chatting about this in our chat group, our work chat group, and we were confident that Lando was going to get picked off by Oscar in the later stages, given the rate of knots at which Oscar was catching up Lando towards the end there. As it turned out, Oscar had a couple of chances, and my word, on lap 69, going into turn 1, right behind me down here at the bottom of the start-finish straight, there was one almighty scare for the entire McLaren group watching on, because Oscar, aiming for the inside into turn 1, locked up his brakes heavily, and my word, they came within inches of colliding into one another. They didn't. Lando comes out of it with a win, and as I say, he's narrowed the gap to Oscar now to 9 points with 10 races remaining, and he's game on, anybody's game out of those two who's going to take the title come the end of the season.
It's worth pointing out that McLaren now lead the Constructors' title by, wait for it, 299 points over Ferrari. How staggering is that? And of course, we will discuss all our talking points in much more detail in Monday's podcast, including whether Oscar Piastri perhaps has a right to maybe feel a bit hard done by, given he had arguably what was viewed as the right strategy, only to lose out to Lando on the one. So we got to discuss, though, Charles Leclerc, who for much of the race was looking like the potential race winner, made a great start from pole, led the entirety of the first stint, entirety of the net lead for the second stint, until after a second pit stop, where everything just seemed to go horribly wrong. His pace, which was enough to match the McLaren's, and actually at one point a 3-second lead over Piastri, vanished. It just went all wrong. George Russell caught him with ease, overtook him after some interesting driving from Leclerc. Erratic driving did result in Leclerc getting a 5-second time penalty and 1 penalty point. Oscar breezed past with complete ease. Leclerc very furious over the radio, took back the comments though post-race. George, interestingly though, had a bit of a theory why Ferrari and Leclerc in particular lost so much pace in the latter stages.
Yeah, fascinating comment, wasn't it, Nick, from George there, and very pointed. Just to clarify, though, folks, before I move on as to George's comments specifically, the FIA in scrutineering has passed all cars legal, so there are no problems whatsoever with Charles Leclerc's Ferrari. The suggestion from George is that throughout that final stint, at that final pit stop in particular, potentially Ferrari had raised the tyre pressures on that Ferrari, the SF25, perhaps fearing that their car was running too low to the ground and that there might be the possibility of Charles wearing the plank too much that would then have led to his car being discovered to be illegal post-race. But as I say, all is good with that Ferrari. But nevertheless, a very sharp, pointed comment from George Russell towards Charles Leclerc. What both Charles and Ferrari team principal Fred Vasseur have said is that they believe there was a degree of damage to the chassis. Now, George, when that was put to him in the pen post-race, someone said, well, of course they're going to say that. They're not going to say that, don't worry, we only did that because we thought our car might be declared illegal after the race. So, yes, of course they're going to give a mitigating theory. We'll hear more from Ferrari, I'm sure, over the coming days. We might get something out of them as to exactly just what that damage was that forced them, or forced Charles Leclerc at least, to run considerably slowly over that final period anyway.
Because it was, a dramatic loss of pace on Leclerc's side of the garage, having looked set for at worst a podium. I mean, at least he was targeting a podium. Lewis Hamilton on the other side of the garage started in 12th and finished in 12th. Also tried a one-stop strategy. And obviously on Saturday we discussed his comments where he called himself useless, said that Ferrari needs a change of driver. Effectively doubled down on his comments to Sky F1 post-race and effectively said that's just my feeling at the moment. There are things going on behind the scenes and it's just, the 7-time world champion, it just doesn't sound like him.
It doesn't sound like him, but in fairness, Nick, if you cast your mind back to last season, how many times did we hear Lewis Hamilton, when he'd had a bad weekend in what proved to be his final season with Mercedes, turn around and really turn on himself in many respects, criticize himself? I remember quite clearly towards one race towards the end of last season where he turned around and said he wasn't good enough anymore. I think it was after one qualifying session. I think it might have been after Qatar or something like that, where he had a real go at himself. So for me, yes, you don't want to hear these kind of things from a driver of Lewis's caliber. I know many people are thinking, this is it, Lewis is past it now, he should retire. He should have hung up his gloves towards the end of last season rather than going for one final swan song with Ferrari. I still don't believe that's the case. I still want to give Lewis the benefit of the doubt. And I still confidently believe that with a different car next season, under the new regulations, we are going to see a different Lewis Hamilton. I stand proven to be corrected, in all honesty, in all that. And I'll hold my hands up. I'll be the first one to hold my hands up next season and say, got it wrong, folks. Yeah, Lewis no longer has it. But I do believe he still has. Now, as you pointed out, it was, again, a very strange comment from Lewis where he turns around and said there are things going on behind the scenes. Didn't really want to go into what that was referring to. Nevertheless, he will be at the Dutch Grand Prix in Zandvoort at the end of August. He's not stepping away. Fred Vasseur has reiterated the fact that Lewis is his driver for next season. There's going to be no driver change over the winter, not unless Lewis suddenly decides to turn around over the winter break and say, do you know what? Nah, I'm going to hang up my gloves. I don't think that's going to be the case. I do think we are going to see Lewis on the grid next season. It didn't really surprise me in some respects with regard to Lewis's comments post-qualifying because heat of the moment, adrenaline flowing, super disappointment. You can appreciate that flowing through Lewis when he's finished where he has in qualifying and his teammate Charles Leclerc has managed to get pole position. Bearing in mind as well, Lewis was actually quicker in Q1 on Saturday in qualifying, and he wasn't far off his teammate in Q2. At the end of the day, Ferrari nearly had both cars out in Q2. Charles just managed to get through, and then obviously, of course, that huge climactic change with the wind direction really enabled Charles to get that pole. Almost came close to the win. Certainly looked on course for it. Great pace in that Ferrari over the first 40-odd laps until, of course, things went awry and it led to the McLaren 1-2 towards the end. Just a quick point as well, Nick. That was McLaren's 200th career victory.
I mean, one incident that Lewis did have during the race was with Max Verstappen. I mean, it was reminiscent of something we saw in 2021 almost. We've not seen them two have many battles in recent years, but Max went up the inside, or tried to go up the inside, of Lewis at turn 4. During the race, Lewis went off the circuit. As a result, Max gained the position. It did go to the stewards after the race. Lewis didn't go to the summons, opted not to, and ultimately it was no further investigation, no further action, which I think is probably fair enough. But interestingly, reading the wording in the stewards document, they pointed out it was an ambitious attempt by Max. An interesting word, which, I mean, kind of sums up Max's weekend a bit. It's been a bad weekend for Max. Did manage to rescue a few points, but pulled off some brilliant, ambitious moves going into, in particular, the chicane in Sector 2.
There were some great overtakes from Max, but that's what Max is all about. He's never just going to roll over and say, thanks, folks, I'm going on my summer holidays now. This has been a bad weekend. I'll brush it off and then get away with the wife and kid, you know. So it's like, yeah, of course he's going to give all his best. And that's exactly what we saw around the Hungaroring on Sunday, of course. And yes, it was, yeah, on Lewis, it was a little bit iffy when you looked at it, but nevertheless, I do think the stewards have got it right on this occasion. As you say, interesting wording from the stewards describing that move on Lewis as ambitious. It did take us back to their Titanic tussle, of course, of a few years ago. And what wonderful memories we have of that season. But on this occasion, that move was for 11th place. I mean, that just gives you some ideas of just how far, certainly Max over the course of this season in particular, has fallen, and Lewis especially over the past couple of years, that these two guys were fighting for 11th place. As you say, Lewis didn't go to the stewards, and it was the team representative from Ferrari that was there on his behalf. And you kind of, again, read into the steward's doc that Lewis had indicated to the team representative, do you know what? I'm really not too fussed. I felt everything was okay because, as I say, the team representative in his wording indicated that from Lewis's perspective, the move was okay.
Just finally, to read through the top 10 from the Hungarian Grand Prix, it was Lando Norris victorious, ahead of Oscar Piastri, George Russell in third, Charles Leclerc in fourth, Fernando Alonso in an awesome fifth for Aston Martin, crucial for the Constructors' Championship for fifth place. We'll speak about that in the podcast. Gabriel Bortoleto, the rookie, who just keeps delivering at the moment. He finished in sixth for Stake. Lance Stroll in seventh, Liam Lawson eighth, Max Verstappen in 9th, and Kimi Antonelli in 10th. Very quickly on the point of Aston Martin at Racing News 365, we are still running a prize giveaway. If you'd like to win one of 2 Aston Martin caps, all you've got to do is be subscribed to the Racing News 365 channel and comment below any video from this week. I want to win, but just do this one for ease. The competition, and this is important, will end at 9 a.m. UK time on Monday morning. That is, and let me get it correct, 10 a.m. in Central Europe and 4 a.m. on the East Coast of America. Ian, am I right with that? Timing's okay?
You are correct, Nick, yes. And obviously, if you're in Australia, folks, we're not going to rule you out. We know you are many, many hours ahead. So you've got about to the evening time, your time, to get your to subscribe to our channel. So please do. We want all the subscriptions that we could get, of course. Thanks always for watching and listening.
Yeah, please do like this video, subscribe to the channel, and be sure to join us on Monday for the podcast. See you later.
Take care as always, folks.